I'm joined today by economist Pavlina Tcherneva. She is assistant professor of economics at Bard College and a research scholar at the Levy Economics Institute. It's really great to have you today. We've spoken about the Swiss idea of an income guarantee, and you have a video in which you actually discuss the idea of a job guarantee. So let's kind of start most broadly to begin with. What is the general idea of the job guarantee?
Yes, sure. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. The job guarantee is a policy that basically is an employment safety net. We have a variety of safety nets, but the one that's missing is an employment safety net to those who want to work and do not wish to take unemployment insurance or various other income support options. So basically, it's an ongoing program. It's not just a program that we put in place today, we phase out tomorrow, so that the economy recovers and then it's shut down. It's actually an employment safety net that is an ongoing, because the unemployment problem is an ongoing problem.
So
Even
let's talk about the logistics of that. Where do the jobs come from? Who creates the jobs? Who determines what person is assigned particular jobs, etc.?
Okay, so there are a number of proposals on how you could run this. The one that I prefer is that it's a federally funded program, the way safety nets are funded in general, but they are locally administered and locally run. And in particular, I've argued for a strong role for the traditional nonprofit sector and the nonprofit social entrepreneurial ventures. So basically, you have a policy that says the following. If you would like to work, you've been looking for work, you can't find employment, we make a promise that we will find you a decent job at a decent wage benefit package in the social services sector. So what you could do is simply scale up work that's already existing on the ground, work that's already being done by nonprofits and these various nonprofit social entrepreneurial ventures, because they actually deal with very specific needs and they deal with them um, in a sense in a counter-cyclical manner. They need to do more work when times are bad and they do less work when times are good.
So this is
So
interesting. And, the one that comes to mind is here in New York City, for example, the foster care system is drastically understaffed. There is just an incredible need for people to work cases within the foster care system as advocates, etc. And it stands to reason that if times are bad, that need might increase. However, there's just no funding. The city and state have no funding to hire people. So those are jobs that are needed, but there is no funding for. So there the question becomes, who funds it? Is the federal government simply paying this wage out of their pocket, so to speak?
yes, it's a program that will be federally funded, but then run by states or localities, as you suggest. So it's important that the federal government funds this, just like with any social safety net. It doesn't jeopardize the existence of the social safety net when the federal government funds it, where states can run into real trouble with their budgets, and they have balanced budget amendments, various other reasons why they actually are not able to sustain these programs. So we federally fund Social Security, Medicare, various other programs. So the job guarantee provides both. It provides the funding, but also it provides the staff, the manpower that is necessary to staff all these various projects that we need. And when the New Deal did direct employment in somewhat similar fashion, about 80% or more of the expenditures was on wages and benefits. And there are other programs that we could look to where we could see that a large portion of the funding is dedicated to wages. You could do some funding of materials. You could do a public-private partnership where the nonprofits contribute to the resources. For example, they can contribute with the place of work, with the infrastructure they already have for the execution of these projects.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the gripes that the American right would have with such a proposal. I get emails all the time when we discuss unemployment insurance, which is that it is essentially insurance for the lazy. And this was one of the criticisms of the Swiss guaranteed income proposal. If you had a guaranteed job program like the one we're talking about here, would this completely eliminate unemployment insurance? Because if you are unemployed and can't find a job, the government gives you a job and therefore eliminate that entire structure? Or would it be in addition to that?
Okay, it is in addition to that. So that's a very good question. It's important to understand what the JG, the job guarantee, is not. First, it's not a welfare. It's not just a handout, and it's not a workfare. We're going to take away your unemployment insurance and we're going to give it to you only if you work in this project. Absolutely not. This is an assurance. This is an option, an employment option that is in addition to the various programs that we already have in existence. And there is an argument to be made about beefing up some of these income supports. I will make a very strong argument for boosting Social Security, veteran benefits. But this is an additional program that provides an employment option to those who wish to work for the public purpose. It's not a workfare where people are mandated to work in exchange for their benefits.
So then the question becomes, what are the broad macroeconomic implications of such a program? If you are adding an expenditure for the government, are you making it up somewhere else? How are you taking it in? How is this funded in a way that is not going to? And again, we can have the debate over whether the absolute amount of deficit is or is not a problem. But factually speaking, will this be a deficit neutral, negative, or positive program?
All right. So the way that I would look at this issue is not to look at the size of the deficit as an indicator of the success of the program. The funding is a separate matter. And when we are talking about a government like the United States, unlike governments in Europe that have control over their central bank and their treasury, they fund the programs they commit to. So just like Social Security, if we commit to a program like this, it will be funded, and the measure of success will not be the size of the deficit. But I will make a strong argument to say that this program is actually countercyclical. And so the way that it will evolve through time is that the program will expand when times are really bad. And that in itself provides the stimulus that is needed to kickstart economic growth. But when that growth comes, people are then able to transition to better paying jobs, better employment opportunities in the private sector, then expenditure on the very program shrinks. And so the deficit, as it may be, will likely shrink.
And not only that, presumably then tax revenues increase because those individuals are moving to jobs that pay more, and therefore that may actually increase the amount of tax revenue for the government.
Well, that would matter very much for states. Absolutely. States very much depend on tax revenue. For the federal government actually doesn't fund itself per se out of tax revenue. It is a issuer of its currency. It basically funds itself by appropriating budgets for its various programs. But it's very important for the states, absolutely, that economic growth increases, that tax revenue increases at the state level, and that, of course, improves their overall budget position. But what is very important here is that we are spending money, and at the same time, we're also producing something of social value. It's not just spending money that supports the unemployed, which is the right thing to do, of course. In bad times, you have to provide some income safety net. But the program itself actually produces social useful output. And that's an additional benefit. And I would focus on the real benefits of this program far more than on the sort of financial accounting results.
Sure, and that's, I think, where a lot of the analyses, even when we talk about small increases to the minimum wage, get lost, which is, let's forget for just a second, not that it isn't important, the effect on the business owner paying a higher wage, but let's talk about the broader economic impact of everyone having a little bit, or at least those who are at the minimum wage, having a little more money in their pocket. That seems to be the most important consideration.
Absolutely. Just think of this economy, which currently has about 25 million people who are either without a job or with very precarious employment, underemployed. Now think of an economy that has 25 million people working at a decent job, a decent pay. They are not all going to be in the job guarantee, by no means, because the very expenditure on the program is going to create so much economic growth that cash registers are going to be ringing in the private sector, and the private sector will demand workers. So many people who are looking for work will actually find employment in the private sector.
I think that's a key point. And then, of course, which we don't have time for, but we could also calculate the decreased expenditure on programs for people who qualify based on low income. Those would decrease, and certainly we could round that conversation out. We've been speaking with Professor Pavlina Tcherneva. She is Assistant Professor of Economics at Bard College and a research scholar at the Levy Economics Institute. Thanks so much for doing this. A pleasure to have you on.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.